Hello, good evening, and welcome to Mindset Shifts and the What Ifs. I am your host, Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive coach. And if you don't know me, happy stumbling upon me. I'm glad you're here. I work with workaholics, people pleasers, and perfectionists who are in their corporate careers and feeling like this is it. This is what I get. I guess it's fine, but we all know it's not fine. Y'all, that's not how fine lives. So I come here every week to live stream. This week I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Yes, I made it to Instagram. I think. If you're on Instagram, let me know that you're there and come say hi. And I talk about our mindsets. I talk about like what happens in our brains and why do we get so confused and messy about what we're allowed to have when we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and on we go. And the answer is we are trained. We are trained early in our careers to listen to our bosses, do what we can to keep our jobs, settle into a career, have a path, go that way, do that thing. Someday you'll retire and then you can be happy. And I reject that. And it took me a long time to reject that. First, I had to be a people-pleasing workaholic perfectionist. See why that's who I work with. And then I had to figure out what I actually wanted that was different than what I had. And then I had to go and get some help because as capable a human as I am and as good as I am helping all of the people with all of the things all of the time, I did not have the capacity, the objectivity, or the right questions to ask myself to make my own changes independently. And so that's a little bit about my path. And if you're joining for the first time, you may not know that every week I come in here, I talk about our mindsets, I talk about all of the what ifs that swim in our heads, and I have a spinning wheel choose a topic for me. Now I chose the topic, so it's really like my game with me about you, the general you. And I like it. It's a fun game. So I just keep doing it. So why don't we take a look at the wheel, give ourselves tonight's topic, and let's see what comes up here. Give the old screen a share. Amazing. And let's see what our topic will be for today. What happens when you put yourself last? It's a great topic. All the topics are great. But yes, let's talk about what happens when you put yourself last. And what does that even mean, putting yourself last? We think that if we're taking care of everything around us, the people, the job responsibilities, the clients, the stakeholders, the coworkers, the boss, the assistant, the team members, that like we'll be okay. We'll be taken care of too. And what happens when we do that, when we put everybody else first, when we put everybody else in charge of our satisfaction and our joy, and we don't make any time for ourselves, we lose our sense of self. And that happens to so many of us in our careers. It happens to so many of us in this like 30 to 65 or so range. And I say 65 or so because there are people who work well into their 80s and there are people who retire pretty early and everything in between. And so when I'm working with clients, I'm typically working with people who've been in the work world at least 15 years and have hit a point where they're never putting themselves first. And in fact, not only are they not putting themselves first, they are in like dead last place. They take care of everything and everyone And if there's room for them, if there is space for them, then they may sneak in something. And what happens when you're putting yourself last is that even the things you enjoy doing become burdensome. And I'm going to give you an example from my own life, and then I'll give you an example from a client's life as well. And just so you know, when I talk about my clients, I generalize my clients enough that none of them are identifiable. Sometimes 2 or 3 or more of my clients have really similar situations, and so I can mash them together. And also, I have express permission from my clients in our contract agreement that I talk about their situations in this way. The only time you see specific information about a client is if they have a testimonial and they have agreed to let me use their name, whether in whole or in part. Confidentiality, super important to me. So let me tell you a story about me first, and then I'll talk about a client situation of putting ourselves last. So I was an 80-hour plus a week worker for many years, and I came last in my own life. I live in the state of Maryland. I visited my family about every 6 to 8 weeks up in New York and New Jersey. I would ride up there, drive up there, stay for a night or two, come back, go right back to work on the next Monday. Generally, I was taking work with me. And because, how do you fit in 80 to 100 hours a week if you're not working on the weekends and evenings, right? And all at the same time, I was living with a chronic illness. I was trying to see my friends and keep my friendships alive. And I got a lot of value out of all of those things. So I don't want to say putting yourself last means spending time with your family, or putting yourself last means, not enjoying your job or working a lower level job or a smaller job. That's not what I mean at all. But when I put myself last, the illnesses that I have, which is a variety of chronic illnesses, were exacerbated. They were worse. They were harder to deal with. And my life was sort of either working so hard to keep up with all of the things I was committing to, or being crashed out. And being crashed out meant I prioritized work, I prioritized family, I prioritized my dog, of course, which, like, who's going to not prioritize their dog? But I prioritized everything except for me. Now, I made sure to go to my doctor's appointments, take medicine, and all of those kinds of things. But that was like the lowest level of basic maintenance I could do. When I realized that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life living that way, I had to make some changes and set some boundaries. And some people didn't really like that. Work really likes when you're willing to work 80 plus hours a week. They sure do. People who would come to me for advice or coaching, who I didn't charge for advice or coaching, because I saw it as sort of a side gig that I enjoyed at the time, were frustrated that I wasn't willing to offer free services anymore. And what that ended up doing for me in putting myself first was that it allowed me, first of all, rest. It allowed me time to rest and rejuvenate, so that I wasn't feeling all of the time like I couldn't keep up with anything. And like I was either working my tush off or totally crashed out. I was either pleasing everybody I could possibly please, or nobody, and everybody felt like a little bit bad for me because I had worked myself to exhaustion and, couldn't come in anymore. So in learning for myself how to set my own boundaries, and by the way, I had been a coach for about 15 years before I got my own coach, because I was the capable one. I didn't need a coach, which is not true. I needed a coach. And when I finally realized that, and I finally allowed somebody in to help me figure out me, I realized I didn't want to put myself last. I just didn't know how to not put myself last, because I prioritized, because I cared so much about everybody else and everybody else's comfort and happiness. I prioritized everything but me. And it made me not only physically sick, but it made me exhausted. It made me a little bit resentful, a little bit of a martyr kind of feeling. And it made me hate my job, made me hate my career. I'd been in HR. I ended up being in HR for 20 years. I loved it for 15 years. And then the switch flipped like that. I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know what else I could do. I had no idea that I could build a whole coaching business, which is what I do now. But I needed to know, and unfortunately for me, I needed to hit like my level of rock bottom, which was breaking my shoulders chasing a vacuum when I was trying to multitask and do work and get work done while my Roomba vacuum ran around the house and was looking like it was going to catch a lamp cord. And I ran to get it and I broke my shoulders and I took myself out of my life for several months, because not only could I no longer eat by myself or pull my own pants down, I also could not raise my hand to say, I'll do it. My lesson was really hard. And what I learned was, for as long as I was deciding to put myself last, for as long as I was setting the expectation for myself to come in last place, I would. There was nobody out there, no matter how much they cared about me. And people said to me, like, gosh, do other people like work like this in your company? Are you, can you set any boundaries? Can you take some time off? I had support around me. I had supportive friends around me who were saying, like, this is a lot. Are you going to do this forever? Like, is this what you really want? And the martyr in me was like, well, I built this city around myself, and, this is what I have. It can't back out of it now. The very first thing that I worked on with my executive coach, when I hired an executive coach finally, was something that I work on with my clients, which is, what are the things that we've told ourselves we believe? And if we believe that we come last, we absolutely come last. If we believe that servant leadership, which I believe in, means that leaders eat last, and it means that leaders always eat last under every circumstance, no matter what. If your people aren't taken care of, if your clients, if your stakeholders aren't taken care of, you do not eat. And when you are a people pleaser and a perfectionist, you feel like nobody's ever taken care of enough. So you just don't get to eat. It's not even that you're eating last. You just don't get to eat. Let me know if this sounds familiar. If you're out there in the comments, or shoot me a DM and let me know. I always like to hear if what I'm talking about resonates with others. But now let me also tell you about a client. I had a client who just finished with me a couple of months ago, an executive producer for live television. And that job, the nature of that job, is a 15-hour day. You come in, there's a meeting, there's several hours of planning, then there's the live show, then there's the debrief, and then the day ends, right? And then you're like getting ready for tomorrow. So where some jobs are, you have created or you've co-created, or it's been created for you, that this is a chaotic place and we work this many hours and we work on weekends. Some of that is self-created and some of that we can self-boundary. Other of that is the nature of the job. So being an executive producer in TV is a job that is a 15-hour day. Now, that said, with that client who was absolutely putting themselves last, it's not a continuous 15-hour day. It is a long 15-hour day. Don't get me wrong. But when this client came to me wanting a career change, wanting to get out of this 20 plus career in live television because it's exhausting and it crosses over this threshold of no longer being exciting and now being hard and awful, right? And for as long as your job and your career are exciting, let them be and thrive in that. There was a period of time where I was working 80 plus hours a week and I was like, I freaking love this. This is awesome. I'm good at it. I enjoy it. I'm making an impact. And then the switch flipped. So for this client, same thing. The switch flipped. And this client no longer wanted to be working these 15-hour days, be in this sort of constant grind of planning a daily show and executing it and then debriefing it and then coming back the next day and starting that over. And so what we had to work on together was negotiating this client's time with themselves. So this was not about this client going to their boss and saying, hey, I need to take some time in the middle of the day. This was not about this client saying to their coworkers, hey, if you see me missing, I'm just taking some personal time in a conference room. This was about this client deciding that they were taking a lunch break and that during their lunch break, they were going to take some networking calls. During that lunch break, which could be anywhere from like early lunch to late lunch, which could also include a half hour of going to get coffee, right? Which could include every once in a while a 2-hour lunch with somebody who was going to give them advice about moving to a different industry, or was going to be a good catch-up networking call or networking meeting with somebody who could help them with the next direction in their career. This client had to negotiate with themselves to not always be last, to not always be missing their kids' things, missing the energy to do anything on the weekend. And so this client, just like me, still a work in progress. This client is still looking for their next opportunity a couple of months later, and we'll find it, right? The job market is bonkers right now. I don't even know what sound effect to give the job market right now. It is bonkers. It is hopefully on its way to turning around, but I have several clients who are in this like unprecedented job market right now. But when we started working together, this client didn't see any space in their calendar, any space in their schedule, any time where they could pick up their own phone and look on LinkedIn for jobs or for contacts, or get an email together that they BCC all of their friends on and say like, hey, sorry for the mass email, but here I am. I'm starting to look and here's what I'm looking for. And please let me know if you know of anything. Because this person had become so accustomed to putting themselves last, that there wasn't even an inkling of finding the time. And this work was not about me dictating, you have to do this. This was about helping this client negotiate with themselves about how to make the time, how to create the space in both like physical space and time, but also in energy to focus on themselves. And we got there. It takes time. It takes creativity. It takes the willingness to say like, I deserve this. I have earned the right just by existing as a human being to spend some time and energy on myself. And what happened for this client was that they saw their worth. They saw their financial value. They saw what they value in a workplace. They saw what they value in a home life. They learned what other people value in them. That is an exercise that I do with all of my clients at some point, is to help you see who you are, which is hard to do when we can't be objective about ourselves, and when as humans we are like wired towards negativity for ourselves, towards telling ourselves we always need to improve, we always need to do better. And had this client, or had I, not made these changes, life would have been fine, right? But if you know me, you know that I think fine is a trap. I could have finished my career in HR for another 20 years before I retired, and it would have been fine. I probably would have found another company to work for. I might have been able to set boundaries, but probably not really. I probably would have continued to be like a 60, 80 hour a week worker. I probably would decide that I could be happy when I was retired, but I was no longer willing to wait for that. So the thing that happens when you even begin to not put yourself last, the thing that happens is that you get a little reward for it, right? I've had clients who set a timer and read for 5 minutes just because it gets them away from their phone or their work or whatever. I have had clients who work in an open space, and so they go into a bathroom stall and they do a 4-7-8 breath, which if you don't know what that is, it's a great body regulator to breathe in for 4, hold for a count of 7, and then breathe out for a count of 8, just to have time to breathe, right? When you start getting these little rewards, like, wow, standing in a bathroom stall for a minute and a half and breathing 4-7-8 a bunch of times really like re-leveled me. Those clients come back to me and they say, that was cool, I want more. And when you stop putting yourself last, even a little bit, you get so hungry for more, not putting yourself last, that you actually start to consider putting yourself first. And it turns out that when you put yourself first, which again, not an overnight switch, you're not going to come work with me and after one session be like, it's all over for you suckers. I'm working with Lauren now. I've changed my whole life. None of you get anything from me anymore. It is progress. We are all works in progress. But once you start getting that reward of feeling good because you put yourself first and nobody got hurt in the process. Nobody gets hurt when you read for 5 minutes. Nobody gets hurt when you close your office door or go into a bathroom stall or step outside to breathe for 2 minutes. Nobody gets hurt. And then you realize you can have more of that. Well, that client started really looking for the jobs they wanted. I built my entire business, which had just been a sort of hobby side gig, into a full-time business. I've been in my own business for 3 years now. I will never go back to the corporate environment. I do not recommend this for most of my clients. Most of my clients are corporate people who want to stay corporate. They just want to be happier about it. And have better boundaries and have more freedom and have more excitement around what they're doing and be able to speak for themselves and stand for themselves and stand for their teams and delegate out. Like all of the things that we get so bogged down with when we put our last, that's what I work with my clients on, to get them to a place where they not only don't put themselves last anymore, but they actually think first, how does what I'm about to do impact me later? How does this benefit me? How does this benefit the greater good? What might I be limiting myself from if I put myself here in this place where I may not be as needed, versus really thinking about like, what do I want? What's going to serve me and also serve others? And now I get to do this job that I freaking love. I get to run this business that I love. And it's not like every day is a holiday or every day is the best day I've ever had. But like the long and short of it is that I love what I do. My clients, some of them switch jobs. Some of them just find joy where they are because they're setting boundaries. They're asking for what they need. They're standing for themselves. They're telling their leadership that they need raises. And some of my clients leave the workforce for a while because they've been working really toxic environments and they need a break. And then they go and do their own thing, or they go back into the corporate environment and everything in between. The point is, though, for as long as you put yourself last, for as long as you decide that you're the least important person in your life, you for sure will be. The second that you decide that you want something different, you can have it. And that something different may start as 3 deep breaths in the morning. That something different may start as 5 minutes of having coffee standing at your bathroom sink, because that's the only place that you get quiet so far. Your small move may be setting a timer and not allowing yourself to look at your phone until a certain time of day or after a certain time of day. But you get to choose. And you don't have to choose alone. So if this is resonating with you, if this conversation is your aha moment and you want to have a conversation with me, reach out, send me a DM, or set up a strategy call. You can find that on my About page or link to my website somewhere in my About section. And have a conversation with me. It can't hurt. And I will let you off the call saying that you don't want to work with me. I know there are coaches out there who will pressure you like crazy until you give them a yes. That's not how I work. If you want to start a conversation about how scary it is to start a conversation about your career no longer going the way you expected it to, I'm here for that too. I'm a relationship builder. I am pretty easy to talk to. I have been told that it feels like just like having coffee with a friend when you talk to me. Hope to hear from you and see you in the DMs, see you on the strategy calls. And if not there, then I'll see you here next week, same time, same place. Have a great night, everybody. And thanks for being with me tonight.